every relationship I used to have when I'm like contemplating back on it now, it's like it was always like transactional. Like even my parents and stuff like that, I never viewed them as humans. I viewed them as, okay, I look at my mom, I look at my dad. I look at them because they have given me a house. They give me food. They give me shelter. Like they give me all these things. So when I look at them, the relationship I have is they're a house to me, they're money to me, they're like X, Y, and Z to me. And that was like something I like did a lot of exploring, like relationships I had and stuff like that. Like things we call love, things we call like relationships. Oh, like I'll be friends with that person, or I'll be kind or compassionate to that person as long as they smile at me. Right? And that's like irrelevant. It's like when you get back to the point of like, wait, it's not everything's about you. Everyone's got their own stuff to deal with, right? You realize you can just care for someone regardless of what they do. So like now I look at my parents and it's like, I don't look at you as a transaction. I'm not going to be nice to you. Even if you yell at me, even if you scold at me, even if like you're worried that I'm going out at night or something like that, that's okay. That's your nature. I look at you as someone that loves me and I reciprocate that back instead of looking at it as like a transactional sort of thing.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 4 of the Chillcast. Extremely excited today. We've got a very special guest and a good friend as well. So it's going to be a great episode. Just before I begin, I will again thank everyone. I keep doing every episode, but it becomes more and more overwhelming as it goes just because the support is crazy, even more than I could ever imagine. So thank you all so much. If you haven't, again, like and subscribe to the video. It really does help. And if there is one episode you want to stick around for, this is the one. So wait around to the end and let me know how it goes. So today I've brought on good friend, really big man here as well, Louis Dharma. So for everyone who doesn't know Louis, very successful person in general, and just the way his life's going at the moment is really good to see. So he's actually one of like an Amazon bestseller for his business book called Your Unbeatable Business. He's also been like a consultant with like many of the top 100 companies in the world, working closely with CEOs and like the higher groups. And yeah, just his journey in terms of the spirituality level and as a business person has just been really cool. And the way they integrate has been really fascinating to me. So I think we'll go a little bit in depth into that. So how you going?
Yeah, pretty good. Enjoying semi-retired life. So enjoying, can't complain at the moment.
Awesome. So that's Louis, and again, Sharnika. Can't have an episode without Sharnika. So
Can't get rid of me.
Can't get rid of him. But it's going to be really exciting. I think a lot of the things we've sort of discussed about are going to be really in-depth, very deep, and contemplative. So I think everyone's going to have their own opinions, but hopefully we get to a bit of like an even, ground. So yeah, tell us a little bit about, how you're going and how's life in general.
Pretty good. I'm in a pretty interesting stage of life at the moment. I've come out of like around 6 years of working pretty much 90 to 100 hours a week, working with Fortune 500 companies, small businesses, entrepreneurs and stuff like that. And over the past like 3, 4, 5 months, I've pretty much made it a good effort to scale down a fair bit of that and start, per se, like enjoying life a bit more.
Awesome.
So yeah, I think that phase of working like a hound, I think I've done that phase.
Yeah.
On to the next chapter. Definitely.
And like, I think it's definitely something I can see more and more of you sort of coming out, enjoying your life a little bit more compared to sort of that show you're in originally. Yeah. Obviously the way, I think the most interesting about you is sort of the way your mind works and, just talking to you on a daily basis sometimes. It's just like very interesting the mentality you have compared to how like I would have it or someone else, right? So tell us a little bit about that. Like it seems like you're always sort of pushing your mind and.
I think I've just been always someone that likes to try new things.
Yeah.
I've always been someone that whenever someone says no, I'm like, why not? Let's give it a shot. Whether it's like in gym, fitness, whether it's business, whether it's school, like whatever it was, I was always someone that pushed against convention. So like even during school, when people are like, oh, you need to study hard, I'd be like, why? And it's like what's the point of school? Yeah. And then I'd go down that rabbit hole and it's like, like, to get a good job. I'm like, why do you want a good job? So you can have money to buy what?
Yeah.
And it's like, so I'd always go down like those rabbit holes. I'd just be always on that question things.
Yeah. So instead of sort of listening to what people say and taking it for that, you'd always push yourself and figure out why for yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. I just love experimenting, just trying new things.
Trying new things.
So, yeah.
100%. I guess like, and you know, obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, like it seems like you use that in sort of every aspect of your life, right? So as you said, it's not just for like work or anything like that, but you know, obviously you're a high level at work when you work as well, but like you said, gym, even like when you eat food, like everything you do, you sort of have that like almost addiction with it, right? Like I'm almost tempted to say addiction because it seems like you're elite at everything you sort of do. Yeah,
I think I keep a lot of things just light and fun.
Yeah.
Like whatever I do, I treat it sort of like a game. Like whether it's like going to the gym or food or something like that. Why not like go big?
Yeah.
Sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Why not break the barriers?
Yeah.
So
100%. And like I think that's something I see in channels as well. Like something I think you guys have very in common where when you guys get into something, it's sort of taken over your life and you sort of that's all you see.
It's like an obsessiveness.
Yeah, it's an obsessive.
I like to think of it like Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So I love my Harry Potter. So like when Harry and Hermione found out they were wizards, like I can imagine like what that would be like for me. Yeah. It's like you've just like learnt about this new world of like wizardry. Like the first thing I'll do is pretty much what Hermione did. Like go to the library. I'm like, this is like a whole section of like humanity or life that I've never like heard about. Let me learn everything I can. Like there's so much to learn right now, right? And that's sort of like the approach I take to life. There's so many things in life that a lot of people are just closed off to.
Yeah.
Right? Like I said, whether it's fitness, like there was a period of like, I actually know nothing about fitness. Like I remember when I was like 84 kilograms, like pure fat. I was like a spherical ball sort of thing. So I had no idea about fitness and I wanted to lose weight. Yeah. So all I did, I'm like, all right, this is a new chapter of my life. And this is the chapter where I'm going to lose weight. I may as well learn everything I can about this.
Yeah.
So it was like learning I was a wizard. I'm like, there's so much I can learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I take that approach to like a lot of things. I'm like,
Yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah.
It's like one of the things I'm most passionate about as well. I think I described it a bit differently, but it's like I can't understand how when someone learns that there's something new out there, you can't not get totally absorbed in that.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes I go down a rabbit hole. I was talking to Cabby about it last week where I've been finding out about like this new stream of technology. And I have been like so absorbed in that, spending hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, otherwise, how can you ever know whether the way you're living your life is the right way to do it?
Yeah.
You're just going to end up taking someone else's opinion and making it yours.
Yeah. It's like that natural curiosity.
Yeah, it's innate. Yeah, curiosity is probably the right word.
It's like, I have no idea about this.
Yeah.
Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Like that.
I think for me, like it's sort of different. So from your perspectives, like I can see how you guys sort of find something new and get obsessed with it. For me, I find it out through you guys. So like, and so like, I guess I'm the sort of opposite spectrum where I don't like, even if I know there's something new out there, I don't really care unless it's like brought to my attention and then I can get really excited about it, which is usually how it happens. So
yeah, it's cool. I can see that.
Yeah. And like to tell you guys sort of how obsessed these guys are, well, more so like especially Louis, right? He's got 8,000 words worth of notes on his business and another 8,000 words on spirituality and like every other topic. Probably doesn't sound like much, but that's actually only the length of the titles. So if that's the length of the titles, I don't think I've written 8,000 words in my life. So
it was weird. It was like, because I was going through all my notes and there was just like thousands upon thousands of notes. And I'm like, all right, let's categorize all these headings at least, like some about like meditation, some about like self-love, reflection, and like things like that. So I'm like, all right, this heading will go into self-love, this heading will go into anxiety, this one will go into depression, this one will go into meditation. And just the headings, it was like 8,500 words.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that is incredible.
So it's probably like 30, 40 million words, something like that.
That's nuts.
Yeah. I think it points to like constantly reflecting on your experience and then bringing it back down in a way that you can refer back to later, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably the use that you do it for. It's not really to put out there or share, but it's just for you to know that, this is something I went through and explored. Let me write about it. And through that flow, you're able to go deeper and deeper into that concept.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So
100%. And I guess like I'm again on the opposite spectrum for a lot of these things. I'm someone who doesn't take notes for like even like my work meetings or anything when I should be taking notes. So I rely more of like, memory and everything like that. But just does go to show like, and I guess it shows in your demeanor and like how elite you are at the sort of everything you do, because you really take that extra time to make sure you're mastering whatever craft you're doing. Yeah, that's sick. So yeah, like a little bit, I guess about, run us through a little bit about your journey, because I think it's been a really interesting one to say the least. So, let's maybe start at like high school. Maybe that for you guys maybe starts there. These guys are best friends, by the way. So if you don't know, best man at his wedding. So they've known each other since Melbourne High. They've been good friends since there. Yeah. So run us through since then, maybe.
It's funny. We actually weren't that close during high school, especially the first few years.
I don't think it was later, even after high school.
Yeah, it was later. So obviously Melbourne High had some great times there, but it was only after probably first year uni or second year uni when you came back to Melbourne and quit your degree. Yeah, that's when we started really getting close. Yeah. So yeah, definitely a very interesting story.
I think I'd describe it as like, I think for me, the best friendships and relationships are people who, I think a lot of the time people think it's someone who's really similar to you, right? Yeah. But for me, I always find when I discover someone who's totally different, but there's still that grain of like contentment with their life, I'm like, oh, okay, that's different. Yeah. And that brings out a curiosity in me. It's like, wait, is that a way you can do it as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's how people I look at, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like he's also loving his life, but that's not how I do it. But by becoming friends with them and cultivating that relationship, they almost become like a mirror to you discovering that quality in yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So I would describe our friendship as kind of like that. It's like we do things completely differently, but in the same way, that's not a problem. Yeah. Right? And it's like through that, I'm like, oh, okay, that's one way of looking at it. And now I know that quality exists in me as well.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting because like that concept, I usually think of it in a more broad way. So like I think every interaction, every sort of friend, enemy, whatever you want to call them, even like the person I talk to at a drive-through at Macca's, for example, it's almost like a mirror, right? You're learning constantly of what other people around you are sort of reflecting. And that's the only way I guess you can really expand yourself.
Yeah,
definitely. Not the only way, but...
Yeah. It's like giving every interaction is like an opportunity for growth, right?
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to learn.
100%. Yeah. So I think one of the more interesting parts I found in your life, like at least from the outside, right? Like big part of it was sort of when you moved out by yourself finally, and it seemed like a little bit more, you were focusing a little bit more on yourself, your work, and just yourself in general. So run us, and I don't know how interesting this will be to it, like, everyone, but run us through what importance that had in your life, that move.
I think I was going through, so at that stage I was, from like societal standards, I was doing very well in business. So I was making a really good amount of money. And it was a point where, like, it's easier said than done, but we always hear like money doesn't make you happy at all. So I got to the point where I made like a fair bit amount of money, like an amount of money that I could probably make this in like 3-4 years, and I made it like in the month, sort of thing. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, this has not made me happier. It doesn't make me sadder, but it was like the first point. I'm like, holy crap! Like, we go to school, we get a job, we do all of this. We're on like the treadmill of life, all right? And it's all to end up with like money, right? So we can do things. And I had more money than I can handle. I'm like, this sucks. Like, this literally, it's one thing to like conceptually know it.
Yeah.
Like money doesn't make me happy, but to have it in your bank account, to go to like because I went to like all like the car showcases, like Ferraris and stuff. Like I drove in the cars. I'm like, this like does nothing for me. Yeah. I'm like, holy crap. Like what's the point?
Yeah.
So like I went on like more of an inner journey. I'm like, I just have to leave. I'm going to spend like a few years just living by myself. And that was a very interesting few years. I tried going homeless for a few times, just to see how that would go. I did a lot of like inner stuff for those like few years.
I think that's a really interesting point you bring up. Like that money doesn't make you happy, because again, it's something we all hear. Everyone's constantly saying it, but I think you can come at it from a different lens because you've been there, right? You also deal with people at the top of like all these big companies, Nike, Adidas, whatever you're dealing with. But you know, is it sort of similar for them? Like,
it's interesting because like I've worked with, because my background is mostly marketing, so I love the human psychology aspect of it. Like even when I was a child, I would always like play games with my mind to see how it would work. I was just obsessed with how the mind works on a psychological basis. So that's why I just fell in love with marketing. It's just human psychology. And so working with guys or people, CEOs that most of society would seem, they're successful. If I can only get up to that level. And working with those people, and they have the exact same mindset. So whether you're making like 20 grand a year, 30 grand a year, most of the people I would interact with, they're like, if only I can get to like 80 grand, I'd be happy. Or 100 grand or whatever it is. And then I'll be working with guys that are making 500 grand a year. Like, as long as I can get to like 1 million, I'll be satisfied, then I can stop. Then I started working with guys like 7-figure earners, 8-figure earners, 9-figure earners, right? These like top CEOs, these small businesses, like hedge fund managers and stuff like that look after like $3 billion worth of assets. Like they've always got another level to go to. And it's one thing to be ambitious, and that's fine, right? But it's one thing to always be in a sense of tension of like, shit, what I have is like not enough. So no matter who I was really talking to, whether they're like a 7-figure earner, 8-figure earner, or poor or whatever, they were always in a sense of scarcity. Always in a sense of like, my life is worthless without me keep pushing. So like, that's why I was always like fascinated. I'm like, look, these guys, like all these people are looking up to these like heroes. They have no idea like how flawed like we all are, no matter what level we go to. If we don't fix our like inner journey sort of thing. So that's why like I started like working with a lot of, so I just like trying new things. So like I would go visit people in nursing homes, hospitals, because I have good relationships with business and stuff like that. So I got access to these things, even like SVU units and stuff like that, special victims. I got to just talk with people on like every spectrum of mindset. So people like literally like cancer wards, like they're on their deathbed, and just speaking to them, and just seeing how their mind works, just talking to them, and seeing perspectives. So.
100%. Like that curiosity for how everyone's mind works is really cool.
Because I think I just want to explore in that is, I agree, but I also disagree, or maybe it's just a different perspective. It's like, I wouldn't want someone to hear that and not strive to achieve and build a sense of significance for themselves. Because the way I would look at it is, there's like a similar layer of experience that I've gone through where I feel like you first need to build a real sense of significance that you are capable of achieving what you want to achieve, right? And I think the challenge is when you get to that point, you can't then go to the next level, which is almost like looking beyond yourself and realizing I have enough and that's enough to sustain myself. So if we're talking financially, you need to know what you actually need, right, to sustain yourself. And then you need to realize anything more that I earn, I should earn not for me because I have enough, but I should do something useful with this. And I think that's where you open another door. And there's people out there who will be able to take that step, almost like moving out of greed into probably contribution next. And then from contribution, you can actually do something that's meaningful and purposeful. And take that sense of significance, but channel that in a way that's actually meaningful. So for me, I would describe it as, you need to know you're capable of achieve everything you need to achieve, but then shift the focus to seeking meaning as opposed to achievement.
Yeah, because it's interesting because having worked with like different spectrums, like CEOs and like budding entrepreneurs and stuff like that, like my advice is definitely not don't achieve, because it's one thing to read a book or listen to other people's experience. Like it all comes down to your own experience in the end. Like you can say, oh, like money doesn't make you happy. I don't believe you until you have money. You can say, oh, like fancy cars, like a Ferrari doesn't make you happy. Until you can afford a Ferrari and say no to a Ferrari, I don't believe you. And you shouldn't believe yourself either. It's like exactly what you said. You need to know you're capable as a human being to, all right, a function in the world is to make money.
Yeah.
That's
like
basic.
That door doesn't even exist. It's like, for me, it only opened once I knew what I was capable of doing.
Yeah.
It's like, for me, once I built out a business that was really successful, once I knew I was capable of sustaining myself fully, and I had that belief, that's when I was able to even ask that question.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, do I need to keep going down that road?
Yeah.
Okay, no.
Yeah.
But I think the point you're trying to make there is you have to stop and ask that question at that point.
Yeah, at that point, yeah, I completely agree with that. Like, it's easy to say, yeah, that doesn't make you happy, but like until you can actually do it, and then say no at that point.
Yeah. Until then, it's delusion.
Yeah, it's absolute delusion. Yeah, absolutely.
I guess coming from like, different perspective, right? Like, I guess for some people, it's not realistic for them to be able to earn like a Ferrari or like get to like whatever goal they have sometimes, right? Given circumstances, something like that. At what point would you start? Obviously, like as you guys said, like, to a level, sometimes there's delusion, but at a point it becomes realism, right? Where, all right, like fine, like I can't afford this, but would you ever say that someone who can't afford a Ferrari and says that they're happy with the Ferrari, would you ever say that they're genuinely happy, or do you think that's also just delusion?
I think you have to honestly ask yourself, what do I want?
Yeah.
And genuinely want, right? Not what you want so you can feel good, or like, so what do I need? What do I want? And then work towards that. And once you get to that, then you can make that decision. Because I think that includes realism.
Yeah. Because I guess I guess why I asked that question, right? It's like, I think a lot of people tell themselves that they're okay, they're fine, right? But they're not sometimes. Yeah. But then there are people that, don't, and like they're sort of happy. And I guess you can only really tell within yourself, right? At the end of the day.
I think there's like two things I would say. It's like, I feel the biggest issue in the world is self-esteem. People honestly have no idea what the human mind is capable of. So when someone, obviously, like I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and stuff like that, right? So when they come up and say, like, I don't know how to make $1 million. And like they just end there. That's like their vocabulary they use. Like, I don't know how to make $1 million in a year. I'm like, okay, fair enough. One, have you done any research on people that have made $1 million? They're like, no. Like, do you think it's possible that someone else could make $1 million? Like, yeah. So why can't you? And they're like, like I just don't think it's possible. I'm like, okay. There are like literally hundreds of different ways to make $1 million, right? Yeah. Okay. One, have you done the research? Because I guarantee you there is 100 different there is someone in your position right now that has been in the exact same position you've been in, and they've made it work. Okay? If they can make it work, why can't you make it work, right? So a lot of the time people have like their negative feedback loops, like, I can't like deadlift 100 kilograms or 200 kilograms and stuff like that. They haven't even done the research to figure out, I don't know. They have not done the research in terms of, this is what it takes to make $1 million. If you know what it takes to make $1 million and then say no, that's like one thing, all right? So, for example, to go to a gym and like deadlift like 200 kilograms, right? You need a program. You need a personal trainer. You need X, Y, and Z things, right? If I ask the general person, how do you deadlift 200 kilograms? I have no idea. Can you do it? No. So one, they don't even know the steps. Okay, they haven't done any research on it. Second, that's where it comes to the point where like, okay, this is what you have to do. Am I willing to do it or not?
Yeah. So
it's something I call pay price to action. Okay, you can make $1 million. If you want to become $1 million, find 10 entrepreneurs that have made $1 million. Okay, how did they do it? Okay, they probably woke up like 5 a.m. every single day. They probably spent like 2 hours reading books. They probably had like a mentor and stuff like that. They made certain sacrifices. Now the question becomes, oh wait, there's actually like systematic steps to make X amount of money. Now the question is, am I willing to take those steps or not?
That's really
okay. Because like a lot of people are just like, oh, like, they just shut off completely. Like, oh, I have no idea.
Yeah, it comes down to that belief as well. Like it's like first of all, you figure out that you can do it.
Yeah.
Like once you see that systematic thing, usually I find that if you see exactly how something works, it's like, oh, this isn't that hard.
Yeah.
But that belief and drive to push yourself to actually do it is that big step, right?
Yeah.
I think I'd take a slightly different approach. It's like I feel like often the goal is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So no one needs to make $1 million in a year.
Yeah.
And I think most people throw those numbers around for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
It's like, I think the most important thing to figure out, if you can, is what do I actually want?
Yeah.
And it's like when I'm teaching or going through any of this, you start with whatever they think they want.
Yeah.
And then there's exercises you can do to work out what they truly want.
Yeah.
Right. And then what you often realize is what you think you want is so much harder to get to than what you actually want.
Yeah.
Right. Because we sort of touch on it, but what you actually want is more of a feeling than an outcome or something externalized. And then once you realize that, there's so many different ways that you can experience the exact feeling that earning $1 million would give you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. And then coming back to like the concept of belief, I feel like people mistake belief and make it a huge thing that I need to be able to achieve these massive things.
Yeah.
But once you realize what I'm actually looking for when I say I want to make $1 million is a real sense of significance and a real sense of achievement that I could do something that I didn't think I could do. Okay, let's find something that right now I don't think I can do. Maybe it's climbing that massive rock out there, right? Or maybe it's like conquering my fear of heights. It's like, all right, let me go do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you'll get the exact reward in terms of like a biological level. Your body will release all the same neurotransmitters, all the same hormones. You'll feel exactly the same thing that you're going to feel in the year or 2 years you might go through to prove to yourself you can make $1 million, but you can just do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then through that, you can build that sense of significance, that sense of achievement. And I think naturally you start to like step away from needing to know you're significant and moving more towards things you actually want to pursue in your life.
Yeah.
But I agree fully. Like you need to know you can do it first.
Yeah.
But I just don't think you have to go the long way there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like, when it comes to like goals, people always, all right, that's my goal. And then they stop thinking about it. But it's one of those things that you can do on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's a really good point you pointed out. Like no one ever wants anything. It's a feeling they want. Right. It's like the old marketing quote. It's like, no one buys a drill. They buy the hole.
Yeah.
Right. So tell me what your hole is, like the actual hole. And then we'll figure out what you actually need to incentivize that, right? So, yeah, if you can pinpoint that feeling, you can get that in so many different ways.
Yeah, I think it almost becomes like a perpetual part of your experience.
Yeah.
And I think you can tell once someone's conquered that, they carry themselves with that total confidence in themselves, because why would you ever doubt yourself? Because you know you've conquered your greatest fear.
Yeah.
And it's never what people will think it is.
Yeah.
Your greatest fear will be like the tiniest thing that you just don't think you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's never like having worked with so many people, it's never like that, they always have like this is that big moment where like I did something and I figured out like I could do it.
Yeah.
But when you really look at their history, they've spent most of their life conditioning themselves for success.
Yeah.
Like little things like doing cold showers in the morning or something like that. I'm like, oh, why do you do your cold shower? It's like, like I didn't want to do it, so I did it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's training yourself to like, all right, I can do things that I never thought I could do.
Yeah.
As you said, like fear of heights, it's like, I'm scared of heights. Screw it.
Yeah.
Let's go skydiving next week.
Yeah.
I think my mind is telling me, every single biological thing is telling me not to do this.
Yeah.
I can still do it.
Yeah.
So you do that. You can do that on a daily basis, like you can do that so frequently. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, when that thought of like, I can't make $1 million, it's like, wait, why the hell would I trust that instinct? My instincts are like, you don't have to trust them all the time, right?
What about for the viewers? Let's list out simple things you can do, because I think we've both explored it.
Yeah, I think cold showers is like one of the
cold showers,
easiest things you can
do.
Fasting, yeah.
Extended fasts. One I did was public, what I thought would be public humiliation.
Yeah.
So like going and just randomly talking to someone in a cafe.
Yeah. I still love doing that.
Or like doing something that people would think is crazy in public.
Yeah.
It's like, if most people heard that, they'd be like, no way I'm doing that.
Yeah.
But the moment you do it, you're just like, oh, I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that feeling you get when you do something like that, it's really, really incredible. And I think that for me, like I'm usually someone who faces stuff and like I don't really have fear of stuff. Like for example, like we went to somewhere in like, I can't remember where, but like somewhere where there was like the ocean, right? Yeah. I can't swim. I cannot swim. Yeah. So to me, I should be scared of jumping into the water from like 8 meters high, right? Yeah. But I was like,
that's pretty wild.
Yeah. I'm just like, I'm just gonna do it.
You definitely should be afraid.
There was a chance I died, but I just did a front flip. I owned it, right? And that feeling, I was just like, holy shit! Like the only thing that was stopping me was that initial thought.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. Obviously, don't just go dive into water. I had the right equipment as well, but I think it's the same thing we're talking about, though, right? Like where as soon as you pull the trigger and you go ahead and do something. Yeah, you get that feeling, and it's insane.
The greater the fear, I think, the greater the power it has.
100%.
So, if you overcome that, the power you gain is like immense.
Yeah.
I think the biggest fears people have are usually not achievement driven.
Yeah, 100%.
They're more to do with emotion.
Yeah,
it's like if you've got like something that's way harder than any of the things we've probably said is if you have a tethered relationship with a parent, for example, go and tell them you love them.
Yeah,
that's. You watch how much fear there is with something like that.
And it's bizarre, right? Yeah. It's like, how is that? How is that? Like, it's... Because I used to have the same thing.
Yeah.
I would struggle to show emotion to my parents and things like that, the people closest to me.
Yeah.
And it's just going out and doing it. It's just like, wait, why on earth do I have this fear? And like, for me, it wasn't really a question of like, why? Like, I don't care about the psychology behind it. It's like, I know it's there. Like, there's no point talking about why it's there. It's there. And that's okay, it's there.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can overcome it.
Yeah, I'd put the why in terms of why I should do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you don't need to question why it's there.
Yeah.
But you need to question why you're not doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Like fear of heights and stuff like that. There might have been something when I was a child, when I was 2 years old, that scarred me for fear of heights. And I can go to a psychiatrist and like talk about that for years on end and they can... it's irrelevant.
Yeah. I fully agree with that.
It's irrelevant, right? Just go out and do some skydiving. Just go out and do that. Just lean into the fear. Lean into the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So
it's like I love that because it's like if you imagine there's a circle and you're here and the biggest thing you're afraid of is here, people will go all the way around the circle because they don't want to move towards the fear.
Yeah.
And they'll move around away from it until they finally get there.
Yeah.
But if you just move into the fear, you'll find it's right there.
Yeah. Because I remember when I was starting my consulting journey, I would do everything I could not to do a consultation course. I've read over 1,000 books. Yeah. Okay. And like, I have not used probably like 990 of those books. They were all useless.
Yeah.
Like, I've not explored, like no one actually cares how many books you read, right? But it was just for me, like, oh, wait, before I do this consulting call, I just need to read this extra book.
Or I remember for me, it was like, it's 11. They're probably on their coffee break now.
Yeah.
Let me wait. And then I'd like keep myself busy for another 30 minutes.
Yeah.
They're on their lunch break now.
Yeah.
And then I just like find whatever excuses I could.
Yeah.
And I would have done one call by the end of the day.
Yeah. I remember like, so I'm a big proponent of like masterminds and stuff like that. And I used to like walk around and I'm like, so tell me about yourself. Like when we introduce ourselves to the group, I'm like, I've read over 1,000 books. And like, these guys were highly successful, right? And I was like this newbie. And they're like, okay, and? I'm like, I've read 1,000 books. and like one of my mentors at the time, he messaged me, he's like, you're an idiot. Like, that is nothing to be like proud of. Like who? Like,
proof of procrastination.
Yeah, proof of procrastination. Like who goes into like a consulting, like into a company that's like, I've read 1,000 books. Like no one cares. No one cares like what your degree is. Show me what you've done in your life. All right. So that was like the first time like, Fair enough. I've literally wasted definitely, you should be reading, but if it's a way to procrastinate, that's definitely
Yeah, 100%. And I think coming back to that idea of the fear and sort of conquering it, I think, at least through my experience, it's the only time I actually really feel like I'm in power. Like once you sort of realize that there's nothing to be scared of and you can sort of face everything, you literally live in no fear. Like,
I think that's true power.
True power.
It's like people don't know what true power is. People think power is being in a position of power, but true power is knowing that you're able to walk in the shadow of your own fear, no matter what it is.
100%. But I think you've always been really interested in space. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there was like a little bit of an interesting story there. So run us through that.
Yeah, I've just always loved exploring like the notion of space. I think Shanna's is pretty similar as well in that aspect. I've like watched every single space documentary you can like think of. And it was just like a really interesting perspective at the time when I was going through everything. I'm like, oh wait, like this world is like we're all caught up in our own little worlds, right? But when you're watching these documentaries about space and you really look at the stars, like we're just like one world in like this solar system. And this solar system is like one little speck in this galaxy. And this galaxy is like one little speck in like this whole universe. And if you really look, like just for example, like our sun, we think, oh, like this, our holy sun. If you just look at the next galaxy over, like there's a sun like 1,000 times bigger than our sun, right? We are so insignificant. So like it always gave me that at the time when I was a kid, when I was going through all this stuff, I'm like, oh wait, I actually mean nothing. Like no matter what I do, good, bad, small, big, it actually will mean nothing. Like even like Jesus or like whatever, I don't want to like offend anyone, but given another like 2,000, 3,000 years, they'll forget about it, right? It'll just be like another, oh, like that was a cool period in time. Like we'll forget. And like a few thousand years, a few hundred years, 100 years out of lifetime, we think it's like such a long time, but we're talking about billions of years when we talk about the universe. So it's like, I always had that sense of freedom, like, oh, like, chill out, Chillcast. Like, literally, like, no matter what you do, there is no wrong move.
Yeah.
There is no bad, like, there is nothing so bad that is not redeemable.
Yeah.
So, like, whatever you do, take it with, like, a grain of salt and just have fun with it. If you fail, you fail. That's fine. You can get back up and try again.
100%.
So I've always had that notion, and that's what, like, going to, like, all these space documentaries, like, wow. I'm really like there's a sense of awe. I'm like, wow, I'm not the center of the universe. Yeah. All these things are happening without my supernovas, like stars, like all these things. Yeah. It's just a process that's happening. Yeah. And you can either be conflicted by your own bullshit or go learn about the world and explore.
Yeah. I feel like for me, it's like that side of it. And then it's like if you stargaze for a moment, you'll go through that entire experience. But then there's the other side of it as well, where if you can appreciate all of that and then think, in some way, I'm a part of that, it leads to the other part feeling. Because I feel like I always went through this feeling of, whoa, okay, nothing matters, freedom, weight, insignificance. And then I'd go into the other side of that, which is, this is all so awe-inspiring. How is it that I'm literally a part of that?
Yeah, you're a part of it. Yeah.
And it's like you will never be able to figure out to what degree you're not a part of it, right? Yeah. And if you ask that question, it's like, where do I end and that starts? You won't be able to answer that question either. Yeah. And then you sort of go flickering between the two sides of that. Yeah. And then it's like one of the coolest things to explore. Yeah. Down to the biggest macro and smallest micro. Yeah. You get to the same place.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like I guess, like from my perspective, it's like that insignificance. Like again, it's sort of something that gives you power as well, right? Because once you realize that, you know, I've got the freedom to do anything I want, right? Like you're loose, right? Like as in, a lot of people think, oh, like I need to finish uni, go to do a job. I need to, you know, live with my parents just to keep them happy. Yeah. You know, like once you've got those, like all these, you know, you've realized like, you know, you don't need to necessarily think of it as I'm insignificant. Yeah. Also, I am significant because I'm insignificant, right? Like also in that sense where it's like you've got all of this power because no one actually cares. Like no one else cares. Like even like I think let's take it down to like an everyday example, right? Like you probably like say for example I'm getting ready to come on here, talk in front of everyone, put my hair up, wear some clothes, everything like that.
Yeah.
You know,
What hair?
this little hair, yeah. And yet, look, like to me, it's like really important, right? Like I'm like, oh, I need to look good, look presentable. 99% of people don't even realize, like, if you think about it, like no one gives a fuck. Like,
I literally did not know you did your hair. So,
exactly, right? Like, so I guess in that sense, like you just have the complete power of like I'm doing it for myself, right?
Yeah,
but like,
exactly.
Like once you realize, oh, like I'm doing it for myself, then it's fine.
Yeah, there's like something awesome in that, which is it's like ties everything together. I honestly think the most important thing someone can come to realize is that they have choice, but not choice in the way people think it is.
Yeah.
It's like people think, oh, there's a way to control all of this.
Yeah.
But like using what you said, you are literally not in control of anything.
Yeah.
Right? But there's still this sense of, oh, I exist though.
Yeah.
And once you realize that, you realize, oh, the only thing I can control is what I do for myself. And that's my choice, right? It's like the fact that you chose to do your hair up, that was a choice you get to make for yourself. So,
Exactly.
and it's like everything is insignificant to everything else, but that means there's total significance for you in your own world.
Yeah.
100%. And like,
It's like, when I say insignificant, it's pretty much synonymous with freedom.
Yeah.
It's like, don't worry.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, you're good.
Yeah.
You're fine, mate. So I think that ease, it's just freedom for me. It's just like,
Don't you think there's like once you kind of realize that, there's like also coincidentally, you start to live in a certain way?
yeah.
Because until you realize that you're actually trying too hard to not do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And the moment you realize that, you naturally start doing the right thing. It's like things like kindness and compassion. They're natural.
They're natural, yeah. It's a
They're
natural thing.
completely natural qualities that come up with that realization.
Yeah.
Until then, you will never truly be kind.
Yeah.
Because you're only doing it because you feel like you should to be good.
Yeah.
So it's like you realize your true nature just by being free and doing whatever you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And like naturally, like you just won't
Yeah.
do certain things. It's like, because I think we're always in, like for me at least, it's like a very subtle thing, but every relationship I used to have when I'm like contemplating back on it now, it's like, it was always like transactional. Like even my parents and stuff like that, I never viewed them as humans. I viewed them as, okay, I look at my mom, I look at my dad. I look at them because they have given me a house. They give me food. They give me shelter. Like they give me all these things. So when I look at them, the relationship I have is they're a house to me. They're money to me. They're like X, Y, and Z to me. And that was like something I like did a lot of exploring, like relationships I had and stuff like that. Like things we call love, things we call like relationships. Oh, like I'll be friends with that person, or I'll be kind or compassionate to that person as long as they smile at me. Right? And that's like irrelevant. It's like when you get back to the point of like, wait, it's not everything's about you. Everyone's got their own stuff to deal with, right? You realize you can just care for someone regardless of what they do. So like now I look at my parents and it's like, I don't look at you as a transaction. I'm not going to be nice to you, even if you yell at me, even if you scold at me, even if like you're worried that I'm going out at night or something like that. That's okay. That's your nature. I look at you as someone that loves me, and I reciprocate that back instead of looking at it as like a transactional sort of thing.
Yeah, I think you start to realize all the things that you saw them as were things you made up in your mind, and all they were ever trying to do was the best they could do.
Yeah.
Right? And the only way you can come to that realization, I think, is for you to realize it for yourself.
Yeah.
So it just comes back to realizing that's all anyone's doing.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's just trying to do the right thing. And once you see that intent, you're never going to see, you're just never going to see those things ever again in the world.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't think you know this, but like one of like the cool stories that sort of captures that for Louis is he actually does like a lot of stuff like random. He lives by himself, so like for a long period of time. So I think he was obviously exploring a lot of stuff. But one day, I was talking to like one of our friends, right? And apparently when they went to his bathroom, it smelled really, really bad, right? So like, and I was like, oh, fair enough. Like he man eats a lot. Wait for it. And so apparently that friend asked Louis, like, obviously, you know, why does your bathroom smell like that? Apparently though, right? You know, Louis like does walks around the city, and he actually came across a homeless person who was throwing up. And he actually invited him in to his own house and gave him a place to comfortably throw up, gave him food, gave him shelter and everything like that until it was all good, which to me, I'm like, holy shit. Like that was the moment. Obviously you've done all these business things, all, you know, like you have this, like a lot of money, all of these extra stuff, right? But at that moment was the moment I'm like, holy shit, I'm so proud to have him in my life. Like I was like, that is incredible. Like I wish I want to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I guess like, and the thing is there as well, like we were talking about people doing it for themselves. Like you didn't want anyone to sort of be like, oh, Louis is doing such a great thing. You were going to do that regardless, just for yourself. Like what you were just doing it. Yeah. It only came out because your bathroom smelled. You know what I mean? So, and I'm sure like there's much more other stories like that. So I feel like, yeah, it's like,
that's an awesome story.
Such a great story. Like I was so happy when I heard it.
Yeah. And I feel like it's, like to me, what that speaks to is if everyone like thinks about moments they've been inspired in their life, I almost guarantee you would have been inspired by someone who didn't know that they were trying to inspire someone. Yeah. Because for me, that's always how it works. It's like or at least that's how it should work. It's like don't be inspired by the person who's trying to inspire you. Yeah. Watch what someone's doing when they don't know anyone else is watching.
Yeah, exactly that. I was like, and that's what, like, I was like, he literally did it for himself. Like, as in, and at that time as well, like, I was someone who wanted to do that more and more. I was just like, respect.
Yeah, I think like one thing is like what Shannon touched on as well. It's like for me, I'm not really impressed with, like, I'm not impressed with accolades or anything like that. Like, I don't care if you're worth like 10 million, 8 million or 15, like, it doesn't matter, right? Who is that human being as a person? And I think a testament to that is like our relationship, like our friendships and stuff like that. I don't think we really ask, like, how's your business going? Like, you guys haven't asked me like how my business is going, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't think you guys care. Like, honestly, I don't really care about like how well your podcast is doing.
Yeah.
Same thing with like you. Like, I don't really care what you're doing. Oh, how much money? Like, it's irrelevant. Yeah. Like when I speak to you guys, I'm like, okay, I can understand. Like, is he going okay?
Yeah.
Right. And that's like what I care about because like I've seen, like, we've known each other for so long, right? We've had externally ups and downs. There's always been chaos happening in our lives, right? Could be going really well, but that doesn't necessarily you're doing okay.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing with me. Right. Like you can look at me on the outside and be like, oh, like he's doing really well. It's been like steady growth, for like, you know, good 6-7 years.
Yeah.
But like, you don't know what's happening in my internal life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like what I think, at least that's the kind of relationships I try to cultivate. Like I genuinely don't care about what you're doing. Like,
how you going.
Yeah. How you going. Yeah. So like, yeah. That's definitely what I really care about.
I think that's really interesting because I don't think there's anything wrong with caring.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But I think at a base level, like everyone that's truly friends is like that, right? Like I honestly don't know most of the stuff until, you know, like we talked about it. But like even your parents, I feel like they don't know exactly what's going on in your life. Yeah. I remember getting interviewed by them. Like, what does Louis do? What's his job? Yeah. And I was like, I have no idea. Yeah. It's just fun hanging out with him. Yeah. So yeah, in that sense, I really do understand it. But yeah, it's just really cool.
I feel like it's like I should only care about the things in my friend's life that they care about, right? If that makes sense. It's like for you, I could not care less about this podcast, but you care about it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why it's important to me.
Yeah.
It's like, because you actually care, now I want to see you do well with it.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, the day you messaged me and you were like, I really want to go into this. I was like, now I care.
Yeah.
right? But it's like until then I was like, oh, whatever. It's like this video thing.
Now you're on every single episode.
Constant feature.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think sort of speaks out to something else as well, I guess. Like for people that are sort of watching to take out of it, like really reach out to your friends, even your parents, to see how they're doing, how they're going, especially, there's a lot of stuff going on at the moment, right? Like, so it doesn't hurt to reach out. Are you okay? Day was like a few days ago. I don't think you guys even know that.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
I only know because of work.
But yeah,
Every day is Are You Okay Day.
every day is Are You Okay Day. So yeah, just like have a look, ask. Sometimes even just messaging someone changes a lot, right? So touch in, see how they're going. But I think a big thing a lot of people have actually been asking me was like around meditation and spirituality, a lot of that, right? Because I think a lot of people know that it's sort of thing I've been going through for the last couple of years. So I think there's no better combination of people to sort of discuss that through, because these guys have gone through all the rabbit holes. I'm not as advanced. I'll probably take a backseat in this conversation. But I'm really curious to sort of pick your brains and see how all of our experiences are different and how we've come to some of the things we've come to to know, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, this guy's got 8,000 words with headings on spirituality. This guy's gone through probably thousands of hours of videos and audio on it, heaps and heaps. So I think it'll be really interesting. So yeah, like I guess starting off with Louis, right? Because I know there was like a big phase in your life, and even how you've been sitting in the whole podcast besides this, besides the Sadhguru look now. He was crossing his legs. So you've been doing a lot of meditation, a lot of internal journeying. So tell us a little bit about that.
I think it's interesting because I don't think I knew consciously that I had been meditating or reflecting for pretty much most of my life. So as you know, like I'm a huge note taker. So it's just, I reflect. I just have like all these like thought loops I'd go into and I'd like write them down. So that's where all the notes sort of come from, right?
Yeah.
So I've always been somewhat introspective in that regard. So I'll use like the classical definitions, I think, and then relate it back how I've actually been doing it for most of my life.
Yeah.
So I think you've got meditation and then you've got mindfulness. So those like the two big aspects of like, let's just say spirituality or whatever. And mindfulness, the way I sort of define it is remembering to pay attention to or watching how mind's attention goes from one thing to another. Okay, so if I was going to break that down, it's like your mind has all these thoughts, right? And it goes from like one thought to another. So I was always very cognizant of that as a child. Like when I was a kid, I'm like, oh, I'm really happy right now. Okay, cool. And like I'm like, oh, I'm in a really happy state right now. And then all of a sudden, like 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh, like I'm in a bored mood right now. Oh, all of a sudden, like I'm in a sad mood right now. And like I'd always be like very reflective, like, wait, what the heck is going on? Like, okay, I was happy. Why was I happy? I was watching TV. Okay, fair enough. All of a sudden, within the space like 35 minutes, I've gone into like more of like a lull, depressive mood. I'm like, wait, there was like no instigation of that. Like nothing bad happened in my life, but like all of a sudden, like I see the world in a slightly grayer way. Or like I'd go to sleep like really happy and then wake up like dull. I'm like, what the hell is happening? And I was just like, always fascinated by that. I'm like I'm not an idiot. Like it's not like me forcing myself, like maybe I haven't been depressed in a while. Let's have a depressive mood, right? Yeah. So like I'm not asking for it. So it was always something I'm like, okay, what the heck is happening here? Yeah. Like my moods are just changing from like seemingly like every like 10, 15, 20 minutes. And I don't know how the hell it's working. I know I'm not in control of it. Yeah. So that's what I would define as mindfulness, paying attention to how the mind's attention moves from one thought or one feeling to another. So that's essentially what I would define as mindfulness. So something I've been doing for like most of my life. I'm like, that's weird. I feel sad. I feel happy. I'm like, okay, now I'm like mellow. Now I'm this. Now I'm that. All right, cool. That's what I would define as mindfulness. Meditation's a weird one. Because meditation for me, I just define it as stillness or collectedness or doing nothing, just simply being.
Yeah.
Like reflecting a lot of the time, like someone, I remember like, oh, what did you do on the weekend? I remember like, oh, just in my room. Like, oh, what were you doing? I'm like, nothing. Like, what do you mean nothing? Like, because my parents are like curry, so like they were very restrictive. They wouldn't let me out if I had a cold or something like that. So like, and like we didn't have Foxtel or anything like that. My mum was watching Young and the Restless and things like that. So, so I was just like in my room. And obviously like, you know, I'd be like on my computer sometimes, but then like I had 16 hours a day, right? So like a few hours a day, I'd just be like on the bed, chilling, literally doing nothing, not thinking, not doing anything. I'd start off with like thought loops and then that would all of a sudden like fade into like nothingness. And like looking back on it, those moments of like, it was just peace. I'm like, so now learning all the classical lingo of like spirituality and meditation and like all these people, try and get into like a really peaceful state and like everyone like trying. So I'm like, wait, I think I've been getting into those states like for most of my life. So meditation for me, I just describe as stillness, a sense of peace, calm, tranquility of like just doing nothing. You're just, and yeah.
I think that's really interesting because like, I feel like people define meditation as like this big thing, like a big movement at the moment as well, right? Where you're going to get into some sort of like different alternative universe kind of bit, like a big thing, right? Or, you know, even down to the, you know, focus on your breathing, focus on this, focus on that. Like you said, like all you need to do is like lie there and just be, right? Like, and I think for me, like at the start, it was thought loops as well, where, you know, a lot of the time I'm Buddhist, right? So we used to go to the temple and just sit there and literally I had no idea what was going on, right? Like when I was younger. But the older I got, I was like being told more and more just to sort of breathe, focus on my breathing. But I'd always stop my thoughts and try to focus on the breathing, which didn't lead me anywhere, right? But then once I actually focused on my thoughts and listened to what was going on, and I'd end those loops for myself. Like it doesn't go forever, right? You finally get to that stillness at the end, like you said as well, like where you actually just being, like you've got like no thoughts going on. Something might pop up, but you just, again, wait it out to the end.
I'm keen to hear what Shannon has to say, but like I think one thing we've touched on before, no one actually wants anything. No one actually needs anything. They're all chasing a certain feeling, right? So like when someone asks me like, why do you want to meditate? It's like, I think like they ask, like, why should I meditate or how do I meditate? It's like, why would you want to meditate? Like, what are you trying to get out of it? Right? Most of the time, 95% of the time, 99% of the time, it's just like, I just want like less stress in my life or something like that. If that's the reason, I think that's like a majority of people's reasons. Like, I just want less stress. I just want a bit of peace. I'm like, cool, have some peace. Spend 30 minutes every single day just chilling out. I think the best thing a lot of people can do is like, instead of like focusing, I need to meditate for 30 minutes. I need to like do this for an hour or something like that, or focus on my breathing or something like that. It's like, take a hot bath. Like seriously, like every single day in the morning, have some like self-love time. Just chill out. Just like, take a deep breath and just like, I don't want to do anything. I'm just going to lie in bed, listen to some music and just chill out and spend this time every single day just for myself, just calming down. Because that's essentially what my meditation was. It just so happened in those states, I was like lying down, I was perfectly still and stuff like that. But that's like easier said than done. Like the first step is just relaxing and chilling out. Just like having no tension. It's like, I'm here to chill.
100%. And I think before we get your sort of Shannon's perspective on it as well, one thing I really bring it back to is when I was a child, right? A lot of the moments you have and you look back on like very like, as like, I was really happy in this moment, like, those are the moments you realize, like I wasn't really thinking about anything else besides what I was doing. Like, so it doesn't necessarily need to be sitting down and doing meditation. Like everyone's got their own way of being calm, being relaxed. You know, whether it be take a bath, listen to some music by yourself, spending some time with your family. I don't think it comes down to necessarily having to do meditation. I think meditation can be seen as a tool, but I think there's other ways as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd qualify what I'm about to say with like there's like, I feel like for half of my life, I didn't think there was anything wrong. And so if you feel like that, forget about spirituality, go live your life. And then there was a point where I was like, wait, I don't think I'm happy. And then I think at that point, you can choose if you want to take a step into a spiritual journey, right? And I think that's like really important to kind of clear up, because if you think there's nothing wrong, then why do you need to try and do anything about it? Yeah. It's like, if I was happy when I was 15 years old, why would you introduce spirituality to me? It's like, I'm a perfectly content kid living his life. And I think in that way, it's kind of turned into this thing now where unless you are going on this journey, you're actually not doing the right thing with your life. So that's kind of the first thing. For me, it was like, I'll go into the story a bit later, but I think what I've kind of come to realize now is everyone's spiritual journey is actually going to be completely different. It's going to be completely unique. And I think we're probably 3 examples of that. Like the way I've gone through it, the way you've gone through it, the way you've gone through it, totally different, right? And so it's kind of like, there's actually nothing you can really say to it. It's like you can talk about meditation, you can bring up all these techniques, but you've got to figure out how to cultivate a relationship with yourself. Because the only reason you even need to do that is somewhere along the line in your life, you allowed something or someone to change your natural state of peace, contentment, joy. That's how you were as a kid. But somewhere along that journey, somehow you allowed that to be taken away, right? So it's really just about figuring out the lies you've told yourself about why you can't just be happy right now with how things are, and just unraveling that. Meditation is a good technique for that, but I don't think you have to do it like that. Like for me, some of the biggest like revelations have been when I'm on a run, or when I'm at the gym, or when I'm just chilling and having a conversation with someone. In my background, my subconscious is working, and something they say triggers me. And I'm like, oh, holy shit, that's why I thought that when I was like 8 years old.
Yeah.
And so I think the biggest thing is just learning to unravel this like ball of wool that you've like made your mind into. And I think at the end of it, you just realize, there's nothing to unravel. It's just, there's just a natural way things are.
Yeah.
And I don't really need to actually even do anything about it. Yeah.
I think it's fun, like, for me, like when I'm working with like high level entrepreneurs and stuff like that, it's always about like breaking barriers and stuff like that. And getting out of like slave mentality. So like if I'm in a mastermind or I'm talking with a CEO or something like that, and they're like, oh no, I need my morning coffee. I'd be like, you don't need shit. You don't need shit.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't function without my morning coffee. I'm like, what do you mean you can't function without your morning coffee? Like, what if we get into a scenario where there's no coffee? What, are you just going to fail on me? Are you just going to fold? So I would always question people when they're like, oh, I can't do that, or I can't do this. I'm like, based on what? Okay, so like, I think dependency is like a big thing. If you're dependent on coffee, I'm like, all right, you got to prove to yourself that you can do stuff without your coffee. Yeah. You can do stuff without X, Y, and Z, right? And furthermore to that, I think the thing with meditation, the thought experiment I like to do is, as like a human, we always try and put the blame on other people or the circumstance. Oh, like I'm poor because of this. I'm unhappy because I'm not getting this amount of money or something like that. Like we've always got an excuse for something, right? As a generality, obviously, right? So my thing is like, all right, we always blame other people. Let's say I put you in a room, okay? And these like sort of links with meditation. Let's say I put you in a dark room with no sight, there's no sound, there's no taste, you don't have to taste anything. There's no hearing. What else?
I think you covered it.
Yeah, pretty much. Like the 5 senses, right?
Whatever,
the 5 senses, okay? Okay? There is no one that is going to disturb you. Okay? No one is going to disturb you. And it just so happens you can't get hungry. Okay? You're not going to get hungry either. Yeah. Okay? All you have in this room, in this black room, is just yourself and just your thoughts. Okay? How long do you think you can last in that room for? So people are like, that's essentially the classical meditation technique, right? It's like you sit in a room, close your eyes, and for like 10 minutes, and people are like, oh, this sucks. I'm like, wait, why does it suck? Like we live most of our lives complaining about other things, like our circumstance and stuff like that, but we never blame ourselves. So you're in this room, let's just say for 30 minutes. All right, you can do that. Let's say you're in that black room with no stimulus or anything for a day. Let's say a year. Okay? How long can you survive there? People are like, oh, I'll get bored. I'm like, okay, whose fault is that? You can't blame anyone else. Like, the only person you can blame is now yourself. It's like, wait, okay. I'm in this room by myself. No one's hindering me. I don't get hungry. Yet I'm in absolute agony. Because I'm like completely bored. I want to do something. So it's like, for me, it was like a realization of like, it doesn't matter what happens in life. It's always your responsibility to make it. You can either be happy about it or sad about it or make it into an issue. I think that's like the thought experiment. And that's what classical meditation is trying to paint. That nothing in the world, no matter what happens in the world, it's your mind that controls your attitude. It's your mind that is above everything. So if you can get power over your mind, or if you can understand how the mind works, you'll be like invincible. You can be unbreakable. So
I think I'd also maybe qualify that with, for most people, when you say mind, right? I think that's a term that carries different meanings to different people.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really define mind as just thoughts.
Yeah.
And I think the further you go into that journey, you start to realize, if anything, it's more emotions than thoughts.
Yeah.
And probably the biggest thing that's helped me is learning to pay attention to things that emotionally trigger me in my environment, right?
Yeah.
And once you start to realize that, like you said, you realize it's not them that's triggering me to feel angry or me to get upset. I'm making that choice to get angry, to get upset, to get frustrated.
Yeah.
Wait, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
Because it's not them that's going to feel the pain of my anger. I'm feeling the pain of my anger because I'm choosing to experience that right now.
Yeah.
I think the more you can develop that sort of relationship, you realize everything that's kind of happening here is my own relationship with myself.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not even like the biggest fan of the word meditation, because you can just experience it 24/7, which you are, whether you know it or not, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like learning to pay more and more attention to life. Yeah. And that's why awareness is a huge thing. It's like you will start to pick up on the patterns where you choose to make these decisions. And then you realize, oh, I have a choice to suffer and I have a choice to not. Yeah. Whether I suffer or I don't, I'm making that choice. Yeah. And so it's like, then you start to realize, oh, that's through honesty, I can consciously change how I'm living my life. Yeah. And then you're just left with choice at the end. Yeah.
I really like that. And I think something you both sort of touched on, but we didn't necessarily mention, and I think it's important, is that a lot of people do meditation thinking afterwards they're just going to be really happy, right? Yeah. And I think there's this big culture around being happy, living your life happy, right? But you have to realize without sadness, there isn't happiness, right? Yeah. So
it's like only sadness can know happiness.
Exactly.
Only hatred can know love.
Yeah. So
once you sort of see that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you like people want to aim to just live their whole life happy. No, like that's not going to happen. It's not a realistic thing. Mm-hmm. You just need to know that, when you're sad, you're fine. Like you'll come out of it and, tomorrow you'll probably be happy. And I think it's like a big thing at the moment where everyone does meditation just to be like, like I'm going to be happy. Like, no, probably not. Like you might probably be sad, but just know that you're going to be fine.
Yes. For me, it's like creating that wisdom that everything is in flux. Everything is changing. So let's say I do sit down and quote unquote meditate, right? Like now it's a bit easier, but like before it was like I would have this feeling come up. And like I said, I'll go into those thoughts. I'm like, wait, I'm sitting here. There is no stimulus here. I'm just chilling. I'm just like sitting here. I'm like, just like this. And all of a sudden sadness comes up. I'm like, where did that come from? Like I said, it's not like me saying, I haven't felt sad in a while. Maybe I should feel sad. I'm like, it's come up. And I'm like, all right, that's bizarre. That's okay. And then like after like a minute, 2 minutes, that turns into like boredom. I'm like, okay, now it's a new feeling. Okay. And I'm like, now it's like, for some reason I'm a bit more content. I'm a bit more happy. And like all these like feelings start cropping up. And because I'm like meditating, I'm like, you don't have to do anything, right? I'm like, wait, these feelings just come and you don't have to take them like so seriously. All right. So for me, it's like feelings come and they will always disappear. So like no matter what situation you find yourself in, bad, good, if you can endure it, you know the good times will always come. And like the wisdom is like when it's the good times, you know it's going to end. So like you're not clinging onto it. You're like, oh, like it's part of life, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. And the more like you start catching that in yourself, you're like, oh wait, everything is like in a flux.
Yeah.
I can decide to like cry about it, or I can just live in each moment.
Yeah.
And that's what people try to say with like, oh, be in the present moment and stuff like that. It's just accepting what is, right?
Yeah.
If it's, oh, I feel sad. Okay, you feel sad. That's completely fine, right? It's like sometimes like we've always had those moments where you want to punch someone in the face, right? Do you do it? No. Like most of them, hopefully not, right? I was a very angry kid when I grew up, so maybe I did. But it's like you realize, yeah, a feeling comes up. You don't necessarily have to act on it. You don't necessarily have to like, all right, it's there. Let's watch it. No, it's no longer there. Like there's like a sick. I don't know if you know. It's like this old philosopher named Gurdjieff. So when he was like 10 years old, his dad on his deathbed gave him some advice. He's like, look, Gurdjieff, I'm poor. I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of things I can give you. But I can give you one piece of advice. Okay? When anyone makes you angry, I want you to do this. When anyone makes you angry, I want you to stop. Whatever you think you're about to do, just stop. I want you to tell that man or person, in 24 hours, I will give you my reaction. Okay? So no matter whatever he does, if he hits you, spits on you, whatever, he's like, okay, yep, I'm going to leave. In 24 hours, I'm going to come back and respond to this. Okay? And the 10-year-old is like, what kind of stupid advice is this? what the heck, right? And he's like, but it's like his dad's dying, right? So he's like, all right, I've got to take him seriously, right? So he's doing this for a few years and like, he's reflecting on it. He's like, okay, I'm really angry at this point, but he's like, I promised my father not to do anything. 24 hours later, he's like, the anger's not there. Like, you realize every emotion is only there for a moment. And if you can detach yourself from it and you can say, oh, wait, that's an emotion. Okay, cool. Let me take a step back and just, all right, anger's there. Normally what happens is anger's there and that turns into vengefulness because you put your attention on it, right? Like, how could this person do this to me? It's like, wait, anger's there. That's happened. You can move on. So that was a pretty cool story I've always loved.
I think it's funny because I would look at it in the opposite way. And I think you get to the same place.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're saying, no matter what comes up, just stay detached, right?
Yeah.
And allow yourself to feel it, but don't react.
Yeah.
Another thing you can try is if you find that's challenging, don't worry about anything. Whatever comes up, just do it.
Yeah.
Right? And I think if you look at a kid, for example, you'll realize that's all they're ever doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they feel happy, they'll be playing. They feel sad, they'll be crying.
Yeah.
And in their mind, there's actually no issue with either one.
Yeah.
We look at tears and we think, oh my God, that kid's suffering.
Yeah.
When I was a kid and I was crying, I actually had no problem with crying.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was an issue until people around me looked really upset and I was like, oh fuck, there's something bad with crying.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's like, whatever you feel, just go through it.
Yeah.
Don't stop, like deny yourself nothing.
Yeah.
It's like a cool quote I like. It's like literally whatever you're experiencing, experience it. If you feel like you need to do something, do it and just ride the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think you actually get to the same place. Radical acceptance, radical detachment are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. I definitely resonate with acceptance as well. It's just like, it's there.
Yeah.
It's absolutely there. That's a feeling. That's it. Just because the feeling's there doesn't necessarily mean you have to do something about it. Because like, I feel like it all comes down to like conditioning, right? Like there's, in our society right now, like someone dies, like we're supposed to be sad. There are cultures there when someone dies, it's a celebration. It's not like, oh, he's dead. It's like, oh, he died at the age of like 27. Let's look at the 27 years. And it's genuine happiness. There is not an ounce of sadness. So a lot of like our habits, like, oh, we get this feeling and then we tend to sorrow over it or we're happy about it or like whatever, right? It all comes down to like how we've been conditioned to think. So my sort of approach is like, all right, the feeling comes up. Our habit associated with that feeling, let's just say like you get really anxious or something like that. We, like a lot of people, they'll start smoking, right? They'll start doing drugs. They'll start like cutting themselves. They'll do something, right? That's what essentially, like people that cut themselves, like this is what happens. A certain feeling arises. Yeah. Okay, shit. This feeling has arisen, like let's say depression or something like that. Yeah. All right, the mind all of a sudden jumps in and says, I don't like that feeling. Okay, then a story comes up like, oh, why me? This sucks. Okay, and then whenever that happens, the habit comes in. It's like, all right, whenever I have this feeling, I don't like it. I start overthinking. I'm going to start smoking, right? And it's like funny, like obviously like psychiatrists do a great job, right? But they really try to tackle that. They're like, let's try and get you to stop smoking. Yeah. But what ends up happening? They're like, all right, then they turn to like alcohol, or they turn to like chewing gum or something like that. You never address the underlying emotional fracture, right? And it's the relationship you have like with the feeling. It's like, and that's what meditation for me at least. Like you're sitting there and you've devoted yourself. All right, for the next like 30 minutes, I'm just going to chill. Okay. If I get hungry, a feeling of hunger, what normally happens? I'm hungry. Okay. I don't like being hungry. Okay. Oh no, I might be like, I go to the gym, right? So like, I might be losing muscle. I might be doing this. Like, this is not a good feeling, right? Every time I've felt hungry, I like feel weak and stuff like that. Bang, go binging or something like that. Yeah. Like when you're in meditation, it's like, wait, hunger comes. You can't do anything. You literally, you just cut that route. Yeah. And it's like, okay, it comes. And then all of a sudden, like 5 minutes later, 6 minutes later, it's like the hunger goes. Yeah. And like, that's what always like fascinated me. I'm like, wait, I was hungry 6 minutes ago and now I'm not hungry. Yeah. If I wasn't like sitting here chilling, I would have instantly done all those 4 activities. I would have started having those thought loops of like, I'm this hungry. And I would have started like binging. So like when you stop that and prove to yourself, you don't have to be your feeling. You're not your feeling. Just because you have depressed feelings, doesn't mean you're depressed. You're a depressed person. You just have that feeling. That's okay. Yeah. It's okay that you feel hungry. You don't have to necessarily act on it. So like that's like all the games I used to always like play. So I'm like, that's kind of weird.
I think that's interesting.
Pause. What's the time?
10:15. Yeah. Easy.
Wait, can I say one thing on that?
Yeah.
I always like to challenge one side of it. Yeah. So it's like, I can see that approach and I've done it that way as well. Another way I would look at it is, why not do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, I'm hungry, I'm going to binge eat, but just pay attention.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I got hungry and I ate all these snacks. Did that make me feel the way I wanted to feel when I had that hunger?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no, I didn't. Yeah. Because it's like, and I think you need both, actually.
Yeah,
it's like a pendulum, right? Yeah. It's like you can be here just watching everything, but actually you kind of need to go through it and develop your experience through your own existence. And I think eventually what you start to realize is through acceptance, through detachment, through forgiveness, all those things, then you need to just take that courage to step into those emotions and you realize there's kind of a deeper meaning behind it. And they're all just trying to bring you an experience if you can see it in the right way.
Absolutely. Because like it comes down to like choice, not compulsion. Yeah. Because like for me, it's you just never want to live in a state of compulsion because like your feelings are just going to drag you everywhere, right? In this moment, you're going to be sad, so you just ruin your day, right? So as you said, when you're hungry, eat. Absolutely. All right. But there's like a lot of circumstances where like you're hungry, but like you're working. So like, what's the priority in that circumstance? Like, okay, I know through like meditation or like being detached, I can feel hungry and not have to eat. I don't have to be compulsed into this. Like a lot of people like, all right, they feel anxious. I have to have a cigarette. Everything stops. Their whole world stops. It doesn't matter if they're like halfway through like a podcast or something like that. I need to go smoke right now. All right. And it's okay. When I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. I can do that. That's definitely a habit or an action I can take. But then having the power like, okay, I'm hungry. I can make the choice not to eat now as well. I can do both things. So now when hunger comes, you can make a true decision like, all right, I'm hungry. Is this an appropriate time for me to do that? Yeah. because like having that kind of relationship, that's what's allowed me at least like work 100 hours a week, like not sleep for 3 days and stuff like that. It's like I have the choice. Like no one's telling me like you need to put. It's like okay, I have a choice between eating right now, or I'm happy to fast for the next like 36 hours and not eat because I know hunger will come, but I know it will fade as well. All right. So as long as I get past that like 20-minute block of like hunger, I know it's going to fade. And I just keep working. So it's like that position of power, right? You have it from because you know deep down that you've conquered it.
Yeah. And I think the stage that comes after that is an exploration of I have all these things that come up, and essentially emotions bring power because they bring choice.
Yeah.
But then you get to explore what it is you actually want.
Yeah.
Because you learn that you don't have to react and respond to everything.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, what do I want to do with the power this emotion brings me? Because actually, if you pay attention, emotions are power.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it brings energy.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, I feel like I want to do this.
Yeah.
And I think that's the next phase of that exploration.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think it's really interesting. And I think that sort of relates back to what we were saying before. There's no right way about it, right? Like everyone has to sort of do it for themselves, and whether it's through meditation or challenging yourself through having a cold shower in the morning. I did like a 30-day fast where I have no idea why I did it in the end, but while I was doing it, but the amount of lessons I learned on it just because of the awareness I had around it. Finally, I was like, oh, I actually don't really need to eat if I don't want to. Like, as in a lot of the time we're only getting hungry because I'm told to eat at this time or there's food in front of me. Like, whereas that desire is only there because of that. Whereas, if I've shut it off, like after the second week, I was like, what's food? like I don't need food, right? But yeah, I think it's really interesting. So I think it ties back to before where you've got all these different activities. It doesn't have to be meditation. For some people, that's not going to be it. I think even for myself, I think I went out of my comfort zone to do it. But if I sort of stopped before that and thought about why I'm doing it, I think there would have been 1,000 different ways to actually get that feeling you guys have talked about. Yeah. So
for me, I think the biggest thing would be for most people, take a break from life. That's what, instead of meditation or something like that, just every single day, just take a break from the grind, as per se, right? And just for the next 30 minutes, I'm going to take a bath. I'm going to chill. I don't care about the world right now. Okay. This 30 minutes is just for me. Just relax. Because if you just watch people, we're always in a constant, we're eating breakfast and we're eating it really fast. And I do the same thing. It's where are you going? I want to go back to my room. What are you going to do in your room? I just want to go back to my room. We're always in a rush to do something. Right. So I think it's wait, when you're eating, and that's why they say wait, when you're eating, only eat. And that's what they're trying to bring out. It's when you're eating, you eat. You don't have to lean into the next moment. Right. You don't have to look into the future. Just eat. And just be happy eating for a while. So I think if I have advice for anyone, just take 30 minutes by yourself every single morning. Morning's probably the best time. It's I have no agenda here. I'm just going to sit down. I'm just going to chill. I'm going to lie. I'm going to get in the bathtub and just, not worry about anything.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think we'll sort of sum it up there as well. I think that's a great sort of note to end on. Maybe as a takeaway as your homework for this episode, take 30 minutes for yourself every day. Even if it's not every day, start at once a week.
Yeah.
See how that sort of helps you. And then I think naturally you'll sort of start doing it for yourself
a
little bit more because it does help even 30 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, whatever time you can spare, do that. So yes, this has been a really, really good episode. I'm honored to sit in between these two guys and sort of listen to that conversation and also be part of it. So hopefully everyone found that enjoyable. If you do have any questions just in regards to it, put it down in the comments or I'll, even message me or I'll have a way of maybe in the description of contacting us because we're very open as these guys are very knowledgeable as well. So they'll be able to reply to your answers as well as I can as well. So they'll all be there. He doesn't have Instagram, so I'm not really putting much
social media.
social media.
I might be getting it soon.
Yeah, he'll probably be getting it soon. So when he comes back, I think we only that was the tip of the iceberg. So I think there will definitely be more episodes with these two guys here as well. So when he does have something, we'll put it up. But Shanika, as usual, as for every episode so far, his stuff will be down in the description. So mine, thank you so much. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And
Notifications on.
On. Yeah, the bell button.
Notifications.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think it's somewhere here. Awesome. Thank you guys so much and have a good week.